Caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant, a chemical that accelerates your brain and nervous system. It hides in your morning coffee, your afternoon tea, your soda, your energy drink. For billions of people, it's not just a substance, it's a ceremony. The day feels unstarted until that first sip lands. Once swallowed, caffeine moves into your bloodstream and races to your brain, where it latches onto adenosine receptors. Adenosine is your brain's fatigue signal, the chemical that whispers you're tired. Caffeine doesn't silence it, it just covers it up. With adenosine blocked, your neurons fire more rapidly, your heart pumps harder, and within 20 to 30 minutes, clarity arrives. You feel sharp, capable, in control. Not euphoric, just quietly confident. But the body is always working against the illusion. As caffeine breaks down, adenosine floods back in a wave, and the crash follows. Focus dissolves into irritability, restlessness, and the familiar thought, maybe one more cup will fix it. Over time, the brain adapts. It dials back its natural alertness, making caffeine necessary just to feel baseline normal. Stop suddenly, and the consequences are real. Headaches, fog, exhaustion. We laugh about needing coffee to survive, but that's withdrawal wearing the costume of routine. Caffeine doesn't wake you up. It just reschedules your tiredness for later. Now, before we move to the next substance, unfortunately, 95% of you watching this are not subscribed, which honestly feels very on-brand for people watching a video about things that are hard to quit. Subscribing should be easier. It takes less time than a caffeine crash and less effort than quitting nicotine. So hit the button real quick and let's continue. Nicotine. Nicotine is a fast-acting stimulant found in tobacco and vapes. It's the molecule that hooks people, not the smoke, not the ritual, not the flavor. Within seconds of being inhaled, it reaches the brain and triggers a release of dopamine, producing a feeling of calm focus and quiet satisfaction. The onset feels clean and controlled. Heart rate nudges upward, scattered thoughts align, tension softens. For a few minutes, everything runs smoother. Then it burns out. Dopamine fades, and calm turns back into restlessness, irritability, and craving. Every cigarette relieves the discomfort that the previous one created. That's the trap in its purest form. Nicotine doesn't actually relax you. It resets withdrawal and calls it relief. The brain eventually learns that peace only exists in the brief window between cravings. Long-term, it rewires how dopamine is released, meaning without it, ordinary life feels flat and colorless. The physical damage to lungs, blood vessels, and the heart is well documented. But the deeper damage is psychological. It convinces you that you cannot cope on your own. Alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant, meaning it decelerates the brain and nervous system. It shows up everywhere, at celebrations, at funerals, at dinner tables, at parties. People drink to relax, to connect, to escape, or simply to fit in. Once in the bloodstream, it interferes with how the brain communicates with itself. Early on, this feels like a gift. Warmth spreads, inhibitions loosen, social anxiety retreats. Conversations flow more easily. The moment feels lighter. But as the dose climbs, judgment quietly slips away, while confidence stays artificially high. You talk louder, feel more, cross lines you'd normally respect, all while your brain insists everything is fine. That's the core deception of alcohol. It degrades your ability to function while convincing you that you're functioning perfectly. The come down is unglamorous. Energy turns to exhaustion, warmth turns heavy, and the blur sets in. The morning after, the brain's chemistry crashes hard. The hangover. With repeated use, the brain begins expecting alcohol to produce relaxation, and soon you're not drinking for pleasure, but just to feel even. Over time, the liver suffers, the heart weakens, and self-control quietly erodes. It's a substance that makes you feel fully alive while slowly numbing everything that defines you. Pornography. Pornography is a superstimulus, an artificial experience designed to overwhelm your brain's natural reward system. It's not just about sex, it's about infinite novelty, instant access, and endless escalation. When you watch it, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical tied to motivation and reward. But unlike real-life experiences, pornography offers something unnatural, unlimited variety, instantly. New faces, new scenarios, new stimulation, all just one click away. At first it feels harmless, quick escape, easy pleasure, no effort required. But the brain adapts. Over time it becomes less sensitive. What once felt exciting becomes normal, and normal becomes boring. So you search for more extreme, more novel, more intense. This is called dopamine desensitization. The problem isn't just the content, it's the pattern. Instant reward without effort slowly rewires your brain to avoid real-world challenges, where rewards take time. Focus drops, motivation fades, real connections feel less stimulating. And when you try to stop, your brain doesn't like it. You feel restless, distracted, pulled back toward the habit. Not because you need it, but because your brain has learned to depend on it. Pornography doesn't just change what you watch. It changes what your brain expects from reality. Cannabis. Cannabis is a psychoactive drug derived from the marijuana plant, most commonly smoked, vaped, or consumed as an edible. Its primary active compound, THC, targets the brain's endocannabinoid system, the network responsible for regulating mood, memory, and perception. When THC enters the bloodstream and reaches the brain, it binds to receptors normally activated by natural compounds called anandamides, which help maintain emotional balance. The result: time seems to stretch, senses intensify, and ordinary things take on an unexpected warmth or humor. At its peak, cannabis can deepen creativity and induce calm, or it can tip into confusion and paranoia, depending heavily on dosage and the user's state of mind. Music sounds richer. Ideas feel more significant. Reality bends gently without shattering. The come-down is gradual. Thoughts slow, speech loosens, tiredness settles in. For some, it's a soft landing. For others, it leaves a fog that hangs into the following day. Cannabis is mildly addictive, mostly psychologically. Regular use can erode motivation, compromise short-term memory, and in higher doses, stoke anxiety. It's often labeled harmless, but it quietly retrains the brain's relationship with rest and reward. Cocaine. Cocaine is a powerful stimulant extracted from coca leaves, most commonly encountered as a white powder that's snorted, though it can also be smoked or injected. It works by flooding the brain with dopamine while simultaneously blocking the brain's ability to reabsorb it, leaving pleasure signals firing with nothing to shut them off. The onset is nearly immediate. Euphoria, energy, and a sharp sense of invincibility arrive in a rush. The heart pounds, pupils dilate, and the mind feels electric. Every thought brilliant, every action effortless. But the brain's reward system is burning through its resources at an unsustainable rate. The high is fierce and brief. Within minutes, dopamine levels collapse and the come-down hits hard. Anxiety spikes, mood plummets, and exhaustion sets in. The craving for more isn't just desire. It's the brain desperately trying to return to baseline. Cocaine is highly addictive because it hijacks the brain's systems for pleasure, motivation, and control, and then holds them hostage. Over time, it damages the cardiovascular system, constricts blood vessels, and restructures brain chemistry so profoundly that joy without the drug begins to feel unreachable. Ketamine. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic originally developed for surgical use and now employed medically in low doses to treat severe depression. Recreationally, it's sought for its out-of-body qualities and is snorted as a powder or injected in liquid form. It works by blocking glutamate, the brain's primary chemical for processing sensory information and maintaining conscious awareness. The onset is rapid. The world begins to feel muffled, distant, dreamlike. At higher doses, the peak produces full dissociation, the sensation of floating above your own body or observing your life as though watching someone else live it. Users call this the K-hole. Time loses coherence. Identity loosens. For some, it's profoundly peaceful. For others, disorienting to the point of terror. As the drug wears off, awareness filters back slowly. The world feels foggy and underwater for a while before fully resolving. Ketamine doesn't produce classic addiction, but tolerance builds quickly with repeated use. Heavy use leads to memory impairment, serious bladder damage, and a flattening of emotional experience. It separates body from mind with surgical precision, and sometimes the reconnection is never quite complete. Gambling. Gambling is not just about money, it's about uncertainty. Your brain doesn't just love rewards, it loves unpredictable rewards even more. This is called a variable reward system, and it's one of the most addictive mechanisms ever discovered. Every time you play, spin, bet, roll, your brain releases dopamine. Not when you win, but when you might win. That maybe is everything. Near wins feel like real wins. Losses feel like they're leading somewhere. And your brain starts believing the next attempt could change everything. So you keep going. The system is designed this way. Bright lights, sounds, fast results, constant feedback. It keeps your brain locked in a loop. Win, dopamine, lose, try again. Repeat. Over time, logic fades. You stop playing to win and start playing to escape losing. This is called loss chasing, and the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to stop. Not because you're close to winning, but because your brain is stuck in the loop. Gambling doesn't just take money. It takes control over your decisions. Meth. Methamphetamine is a high-intensity stimulant that inundates the brain with dopamine and adrenaline simultaneously, overwhelming every system at once. It can be smoked, swallowed, snorted, or injected, and its onset is near instantaneous, a sudden lightning strike of energy and mental clarity. Everything amplifies, the heart hammers, the mind sharpens to a razor edge. Senses operate at full intensity. Sleep feels not just unnecessary, but absurd. Talk accelerates. Thoughts outpace language. At the peak, confidence mutates into euphoria, and motivation become compulsion. Tasks that seemed impossible feel not just doable, but urgent. Your brain has simply detonated its entire dopamine reserve in a single burst. The come-down is proportionally devastating. Energy collapses. The mind falls into depression, paranoia, and exhaustion that can persist for days. The world turns gray and meaningless. Meth is extraordinarily addictive because it delivers an unmatched high while simultaneously destroying the brain's ability to produce pleasure through any natural means. Over time, severe weight loss, insomnia, hallucinations, cognitive decline. The energy it offers is real, but it's borrowed from your future with interest. Benzos. Benzodiazepines, or benzos, are prescription sedatives used to treat anxiety disorders, panic attacks, and insomnia. Taken as pills, they work by amplifying GABA, the brain's primary inhibitory chemical, which slows neural activity and induces calm. The onset feels like genuine relief. Muscles release tension they'd been holding for hours. Racing thoughts decelerate. The hypervigilance that anxiety demands just stops. The heart steadies, the body softens, and stress retreats. At the peak, everything feels manageable and distant. Worry becomes abstract. Sleep arrives without a fight. But the come-down carries a warning. Drowsiness slides toward confusion. Memory becomes unreliable. Emotions flatten. Used regularly, the brain gradually loses its ability to self-regulate. It outsources calm to the pill and forgets how to produce it independently. Benzos are highly addictive, particularly when use extends beyond short-term prescription. Tolerance builds with unsettling speed, demanding higher doses for the same effect. Stopping abruptly can trigger severe anxiety, tremors, and potentially life-threatening seizures, a withdrawal that requires careful medical supervision. The quiet they offer is real. But silence, it turns out, can be just as addictive as any high, and the brain will do almost anything to keep it.